to another exciting episode of E&FtV's Bridging the Gap. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Jeremie Dardard, former COO of Magnuson Hotels and now Head of Revenue and Distribution at Cheval Collection. Jeremie, good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you, Jason. Doing really well, thank you.
I say that with such excitement and now because it was only yesterday that you found out that you got the job right.
Absolutely. That's the role that I was really hoping for. Joining a culture of innovation, of excellence as well, and joining a great team. So I'm delighted with this appointment, and I can't wait to get started.
Brilliant. More on that later. But I'm really keen. You've got quite an interesting, varied CV. So I'm really keen for like any students watching to be treated to regaled with your career story so far. So tell us a little bit about growing up, getting into hotels, right through to the current day.
Well, that was about 25 years ago. So yes, I've gone through quite a few roles in this time, and the way that I got into hospitality was just a beautiful accident. I went to university, and it was a bit of a slap in the face because I wasn't quite ready for that level. In terms of the input that was required, there was a lot of travel as well, and train strikes that went against me. So as I was studying English and German, after a few months, I realized that I was not going to cut it on the first year. And what I decided to do was to come to London for 3 months and learn English, go back and ace it. And basically, as you can imagine, I just never went back. So when I got to London, my first job was breakfast waiter and room attendant as well in a small hotel, small B&B in Earls Court. And I'd done that for about 2 months. I joined a team of mostly French and Italians. So my desire to learn English didn't really follow through. I was speaking Italian after 3 months. I made the decision not to go back to France and stay because I enjoyed the hospitality industry. I discovered it at that moment and loved it so much that I just wanted to continue. The family feeling that I had there with that team, the excitement of the different departments within the hotel. I just wanted to be part of that and develop. So I've done pretty much all the jobs you can think of, and moved towards front office. I worked for the Millennium and Cawthorne at Chelsea Football Club, where I was able to develop my front office skills and done duty management, front office management. So I believe that half of my career so far has been front office based. In 2012, I moved to revenue management and still at the Millennium and Cawthorne hotels at Chelsea Football Club. And from revenue management, I did that for 6 years. This was the start of the July 2012, so it's the Olympics. London Olympics was extremely busy time and very challenging. But I've learned a lot in these years, learning the systems, learning the reservation aspect and back office aspect of the role, and then moved to a company called Magnuson Hotels. That is mostly based in the US. I was based here in London, but the majority of the portfolio was in America. And my role there at the beginning was to look after a portfolio of 70 hotels. And I had different roles at Magnuson Hotels, mostly in revenue management. It became more strategic, more global as I went along. And my last role at Magnuson Hotels was Chief Operating Officer.
Brilliant. So just picking out some bits from what you've said. I speak to so many students that are currently in a front desk role or a reservationist role that are keen to get into revenue management. That's obviously the path that you took. Can you talk us through how you found that transition from front office to revenue management?
Yes, of course. I think it's a different skill set. I remember back then a lot of people told me that it was a different part of your brain that works, that is at work. You switch from one side to the other side of the brain. You have to learn to become strategic, analytical as well. You are working in front of a computer. Obviously, you've got a team with you, but you need to understand different system. You're more in contact with technology. You need to develop strategies. You need to make sense of the numbers in front of you, digest them, and translate them into something that is going to work. So from front office perspective, it's all about talking to guests. You know, your benchmark is the guest satisfaction. You have that daily contact with different individuals and different expectations, different behaviors, and all of a sudden your objectives change, and it's more about metrics. It's more about results. It's more about numbers, and the way that you work on that is a longer lead time, whereby you need to look at obviously the day to day, but you need to look way beyond that. So from a revenue management perspective, you tend to look at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. That's your core focus. But you also need to look for 365 days for a year, where you need to have something in place in terms of pricing, in terms of strategy, and you need to align as well with the objectives of the hotel or the company. So what this means is you are in touch with every department, whether it's financial, whether it's the sales department, the sales team, the commercial aspects, or even operations as well, because I think it's really good to have that front office background to know what guest expectations are, because that educates you in the right way, and you keep this in mind when you're making changes, when you're looking into strategies, when you're looking at market segmentation. So market segmentation is one of the most difficult exercise, but as well the most rewarding. Because what you need to understand is that you've got different people or different markets coming to your hotel. You've got the corporate guests, you've got families coming at the weekend. At Chelsea Football Club, there were match day packages, a lot of football fans coming over from all over the
Mm.
world. You've got groups, tourist groups, convention groups. So you need to cater for all of that and understand what is going to work with a different approach. And that makes it complicated, but at the same time, enriching, rewarding when you manage to get there.
Did you always have it in your mind that you were going to become a revenue manager when you were on front desk?
Never. I never did. But as I was front office manager, um, you have some tensions at times, and front office during out of office hours will take a lot of reservation calls, and we'll take reservations here, we'll help with the website, if there are any inquiries. And there are book out situations as well. I don't think we want to talk about that today, but there's a lot of overlap, I would say. And
Yeah.
I started to ask quite a lot of questions from that reservation teams. And as I kept asking and going deeper, at some point the general manager said, "Well, why don't you move there and see how it's on the other side?" And I said, "Why not?" But until then, I never thought of that. I really liked the contact with the guests and being at the front. For me, it was no routine whatsoever. It's like every single day is a different day. You never know what to expect. You never know what kind of complaint you're going to deal with or the who you're going to deal with. So that was the beauty of the job. But then moving on to the other side is you find different satisfaction. And I think it's more collective. It's more collective in the way that you've got a whole department there that is working towards the same objective, toward the same result. You've got KPIs in place that you need to achieve in terms of targets, commercial targets, revenue targets, and everything. And I found this to be great in the way that you always want to push further. The other thing I would like to add, Jason, is that revenue management evolves. all the time. And from the moment I started back in 2012 to what it has become now, I wouldn't say it's night and day, but it's been a massive change whereby the revenue manager is more and more part of every decision.
Mm.
You know, communicating more and more to each department. My general manager back in the day used to say that the revenue manager should be locked in a basement and just in front of his computer. I will always remember
Yeah.
that. But that couldn't be true today because you have to be part of the whole equation to understand the different prerogatives and how to orchestrate as well commercial strategies.
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought of revenue management as being like the nexus that links everything together, all the different departments, marketing, accounts, sales, front desk. And you obviously you worked for a general manager that picked out your skills and your talents and said, "Hey, have you thought about, revenue management?" which is brilliant. Some of the students, unlike you and I, because I was the same with you, I kind of fell into it. But some of them are in front desk and reservation positions at the minute, looking to actively transition or get promoted to revenue manager. For those guys, what would you advise? What kind of skills do they need to develop in the current role in order to put them at the front of the queue for that promotion to revenue manager?
I think before skill set, it's about behavior, it's about your attitude, it's about being curious and asking questions, being
Yeah.
inquisitive and wanting to learn, wanting to develop towards that. And I think it's about passion as well. The reason I love this industry so much is because you work with like-minded people that are passionate about what they do. And if they're not, they usually don't last too long in the job or in the company. So through this shared passion, I think you can communicate cohesively with other departments. And there's a lot of cross-training that I was able to put in place back at Chelsea, where the duty managers were critical of some decision, like I was when I was at front office. And I
Mm.
could see them coming from far ahead, and anticipate their questions. Say, why are we booking out today? Why is there a -3 for tonight? And I would explain them. I would, explain the decision making. But going back to the skill set, it's about understanding numbers. And it doesn't come on day one. I will not pretend that I walked into the role and it was piece of cake and I mastered it in 1 week. No,
Mhm.
I think it's about self-learning. I think it's about embracing the systems as well. Again, it's about being inquisitive about the different reports you can find, the different functionalities of the system, and looking at the bigger picture as well. You have a central reservation system, a PMS, a revenue management system, which is a very complex machine, which is the main one for revenue manager. You've got a channel manager, you've got OTAs that you need to control, you need to go on the extranets. So there's so many touch points that you need to embrace and learn from. And the more you learn before you step into the role, the better it is going to be because it's going to educate you on customer trends, statistics, what is working, what isn't working. And the other bit I would add to that as well is the budget. The budget exercise is about this time of the year, October, where every company is looking at their budget. Every hotel is looking at their budget for next year. And the revenue manager has got a great role to play in putting this together. So
Mm.
understanding where it's going to be spent, but most importantly, from a revenue management standpoint, is what are we aiming for? Are we looking at occupancy? Are we looking at rates? Are we looking at both? That's quite a brave objective to take. But usually that's going to dictate your strategy after that is, okay, I think we can bring occupancy to a higher level. So what are we going to do to do this, to achieve that? And then everything follows accordingly.
As obviously your career developed from revenue management through to your position at Magnuson Hotels, which was Chief Operating Officer. tell us a little bit about, again, the transition between, being an on-site day-to-day revenue manager to, quite a lofty position as COO of Magnuson.
Yes, Jason. I think it's a complete shift again, but even more so, because you have to be very careful about communication. So you've got less time to spend with individuals, and you've got to be very clear about what you're asking them to do. Or if you're not clear enough, then they will be confused. They won't ask the question, and then a week or a month down the line, say, "What happened there?" And say, "Well, you just didn't explain it properly." So I think communication is key. And the second aspect of it is you're moving from being a specialist, so revenue management for that matter, to becoming a generalist. And you need to have some knowledge about every department of the company. So in my case, you're looking at business development, you're looking at accounting, you're looking at marketing, sales, human resources. So it's a lot to actually take on. And I didn't have experience in much of these departments, in many of these departments, but it's something that you self-learn. But you also ask questions from other departments to learn from the individuals and try to get your knowledge to the right level. You don't need to become a specialist in marketing. You don't, because you need to rely on other people to do what they're supposed to do. But you also need to understand how you can impact the vision of the company and how these departments are going to play a role into getting there. So I think having a view, a helicopter view, as opposed to being on the ground and closer to everything that happened on the day to day, is that being a bit higher in terms of the perspective and understanding what is wrong, what are the weaknesses, how do we fix them, how do we become more efficient when looking at processes, when looking at solutions, looking at technology, and make everything work better and achieve higher results as a team.
Was that something you enjoyed, leaving revenue management and taking on a more senior role, a more helicopter view of the whole business? Did you find it difficult?
I certainly did, because it's a lot to take on. I had the position for 2 years, and I've been learning for these 2 years, and I felt like I still feel today that there's so much still to learn. The other thing as well is going back to what I said about revenue management. The trends evolve, technology evolves, and you need to stay up to date with everything. So you need to look at internal aspect and external aspect as well, and put that together and just be on top of absolutely everything. And it's really demanding to keep up with.
Obviously, you took to it because you achieved some great results there. Um, and then 6 months ago, you decided to take some time out a little bit from Magnuson. Tell us a little bit about that decision and what you've been up to for the last 6 months.
Yes, well, as I said earlier, Magnuson Hotels is a global chain with fantastic people, wonderful people that I've had the chance and opportunity to work with. And I'm very grateful to the founders of the company. But at the same time, I was working very late hours and working from London, being based in London, looking at a global portfolio, had its demands in terms of work-life balance. So what I decided 6 months ago was to take some time off. I knew that it was 25 years. I was coming to 25 years in the industry, 25 years of working nonstop. And I probably have 25 more years to work. So I thought, why don't I take a break? And why don't I take time with my family?
Yeah,
Because they, I've been working from home for 3 years since the pandemic. I converted my kids' bedroom into an office. And even though I'm here all the time, I've not necessarily been here as much as I want to be with them.
yeah.
And I thought that it was about time for me to repay that, to repay them and dedicate my time to them. So I will tell you, Jason, that's been my most demanding job. Um, and I've had some very demanding customers. My VIPs, I've got a 14-year-old and 7-year-old boy, and I've the amount of jobs or hats I've had to carry over the past 6 months is unbelievable. From being a chef, being a driver, being a football agent, football coach, and name it. So I'm really grateful I had the opportunity to spend that much time being closer, having a closer bond with them. And right now, after 6 months, it's them that are kicking me out and say, "Okay, Dad, when are you going back to work? Because you've just been here for too long."
You'll always have that time to look back on, and I think you'll always be grateful for that decision that you took 6 months ago to spend that quality time with them. And I think hopefully that'll be something they always remember too. I mean, all the cliches are true, aren't they? And people say that you never get that time back, and once they're 18, you've pretty much spent 90% of the time that you'll ever spend with them. And that's kind of gone. And if you've kind of not used it, then that's really sad. But you've obviously shown a great deal of like self-awareness and like emotional intelligence there to realize, look, I need this time because they're not going to be young forever, right?
It takes time, I think, to get to that decision. I think I saw it coming for quite a while because of the demand of the job, the demand of the role, and you have to be invested, completely invested into it. And then what I saw is like my family waiting for me for dinner, having dinner at very late hours, and and then as well you know, being being fatigued, getting to the weekend where your Saturday, your Sunday, where you want to spend with your family, with your loved ones, and do things, go out, do some activities, and just being a bit overwhelmed, for that matter. So, just getting back to fitness and spending time with them and meant the world to me, and to them too. And I've done so much over the past 6 months. I've been in the park for more hours than any other parents, I think, in in the neighborhood, and play so much football with them. So no, it's truly a time that I will remember, and I think they will too. And it's good to remind yourself of priorities as well, because it's quite easy to lose them. And and at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's important to be satisfied with what you do at work. But at the end of the day, you don't live to work. You work to live to some extent.
Yeah,
So I believe that satisfaction at work is massively important. I couldn't do a job that I don't like, that I don't engage with. But at the same time, it shouldn't be your 24/7 aspect of your life when you have a family. Obviously, when
100%.
when I was 20, 21, 22, and my early 20s was completely different because I had no one
Yeah,
to look after. So yes.
yeah, 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 100%. I couldn't agree more with what you just said, actually. So on to this exciting new chapter, Cheval Collection, and yeah, head of revenue and distribution, which I know you're really excited about. Um, Let me put you on the spot a little bit here. This is from where I'm sitting on the other side of the fence, but your you kind of joining Cheval started, say, only 10 days ago or something like 10, 11 days ago, where we had a chat and it was right at the end of the process. So Liz, who's Director of Revenue and Distribution, had other people in the mix. You kind of came from nowhere, made a fantastic impression, and within that short space of time managed to, bag the job, which was absolutely kind of blew me away. And I think it's testament to you. But I'm intrigued to know how you did it. So, and I'm sure a lot of students and industry professionals would be interested in your take on the interview process and the ups and downs and how you made such a good impression. I've got my opinion on it, but I'm interested to hear from you how you did it. How's that for putting you on the spot?
I don't even know myself, Jason. I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. The reason I came so late into the recruitment process of Cheval is was strategic. Um, I so like I said, I spent the past 6 months just focusing on my family. I knew at some point I would have to get back. I was itching to get back to the industry because at some point you just, you want to be part of something. And
Yeah,
I saw the role being advertised. I knew of Cheval Collection from before. And all I've heard about Cheval has always been very positive. I also wanted to work in the luxury market and service apartments as well. And it ticked all the boxes for me. And the other reason as well was working with Liz Callahan there. Um, I've learned a lot in revenue management over the past 12 years, but I believe that you can always learn more. And when you work with someone so experienced, someone that I've got a clear vision and way of doing things, which is probably different to mine, but I really want to learn from the individual and work closely with Liz to further myself, to further my skill set and knowledge. Now, when it comes to the interview or the recruitment process, I saw the role was being advertised. I knew that's the role I wanted because I had been scanning the caterer and LinkedIn for quite a while, but I didn't think anything that appealed to me except that role. And I thought, I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to wait and see what was going on there. And taking a bit of a gamble because obviously the position could have been filled. But I also know that there's a lack of talent in revenue management. There are great revenue managers out there, but what I'm seeing from recruiters on LinkedIn, I'm seeing a lot of posts about the shortage of talents. So I hoped that this would go on my side. Now, when I decided to move forward, I had two options. One of them was to go direct, go on the Cheval Collection website and apply directly. Or the other one was to contact you, Jason, and I'm really glad that I did. Why? Because I got a lot more information about the role, about the culture of the company, about the what would be required from the interview. And every step of the way, I felt that I wasn't just on my own. And I had someone that not just guided me, but encouraged me and gave me that positive vibe that really, really helped me throughout the whole
Mm,
process. Now, what you need to keep in mind is I've not interviewed for at least 6 years.
yeah,
And obviously, when you go back to that, it's a bit of a challenge. It's daunting. You don't know how it's going to go, what questions are
yeah.
going to happen. And when I went for my first interview, or before I went to my first interview, I researched extensively everything I could find about the company, about Cheval Collection. Try to understand on LinkedIn who is what, what positions are there, who is working there, where are the properties located, what are the concepts, what markets they operate in, what trends can I find in these markets. And that was massively interesting. But the reality is, I spend less time trying to anticipate, despite your guidance, Jason, but I spend less time anticipating what questions are going to come. And when the typical question came, I just wasn't ready for that. So my first interview was okay, but I fell on a couple of points. And as I was going home, I was thinking like, gosh, how could I get the answer so wrong? I didn't answer the question properly. As an example, one of the questions I was asked was, tell me how you would implement a strategy. And that's what I've been doing for years. And I just went on a tangent, but never answered the question properly. And so going home, I was thinking, okay, I could have done a lot better there on that point. And as soon as I got home, I sent an email to to say thank you to the person that interviewed me, to acknowledge that I had failed to answer a couple of questions, but I would be very excited to go back for a second interview. And for the second interview, I was asked to present a couple of topics and had to put a presentation in place. So I've done a lot of research there. Not, I mean, about the topics that I was asked to present, but about how to present them as well. And I think that if you're going to go for an interview, you need to understand who you're interviewing for. And what I thought would be the best to put the best foot forward was to understand the culture, was to understand the company and mimic it or copy it as much as possible. So my PowerPoint presentation was very much with everything I could find on their website, the colors of the website, the color palette, the words, um, pictures, quite a lot of photos I took from them, the fonts, to use there on the PowerPoint. I did the best to replicate the presentation to the image of their website. And then obviously learn from your mistakes. And I spent a lot of time anticipating the questions that would come to me. And this time I believe that I did a lot better in answering them and having examples ready. I think you need to always have a couple of examples ready for each question about what you've done in previous experiences. And that always helps show what you're capable of and what you've learned through your development.
Yeah, I think without this wanting to be a sales pitch, I think it is advantageous to go through a decent recruiter for the reasons that you've highlighted, but also if there's a role online, it's so easy to apply directly these days that very often speak to people that can't even remember applying because they've clicked apply on about 80 different jobs, and then you call them, especially for junior roles, and be like, Where was that again? When did I apply for that?" Um, Whereas if you go through a recruiter, the process is, I suppose, a lot more vigorous, but also we'll do a lot of the vetting and present a shortlist to the client with like key information. Um, you're then one of only a handful of CVs that have been vetted and are making their way through. So there's a lot more credence to it than the internal process where there's just mounds and mounds. And with the best will in the world, the recruitment team there sometimes struggle to separate the wheat from the chaff. So that's a key point for me. But also, a good recruiter will know the client quite well and be able to relay information to the candidate, which is invaluable, really. Everything from kind of the hierarchy, um, right through to kind of the culture of the company, which is invaluable. This is turned into a sales pitch, so I'll cut that short. But I think you yourself did so much in terms of your personality, your level of detail and level of research is crucial in a revenue management role because it's all about research and it's all about level of detail. But you talk about the fonts in the presentation and the pictures and the color scheme is just testament to how deep you kind of dug to come up with quality. And also brilliant to it's brilliant that you're humble enough to kind of admit almost that in that first interview you kind of got it slightly wrong, but you kind of really pulled it round in the presentation and you got the result that you deserve. So I love hearing your comments on it. It's just such an education, and nice to hear someone not just say, "Oh, I smashed it because of X, Y, and Z," but for you to look at the ups and downs of the whole process. So yeah, it's fantastic to hear the story of that. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you've got to get down to Cheval Collection now because you're going to meet the team, which you're really excited about. I don't want to be responsible for you being late, so I'm going to let you go, Jeremy. But thank you so much for giving up your time to come on and chat about your career so far and how you bagged the job at Cheval and your time at Magnuson as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Jason. It was a pleasure to be here, and I wish everyone the best. What I would like to say as a parting note is this industry is a beautiful one. there's no routine. There's so many ways to develop. It hasn't got to be revenue management. There's so many other ways as well where you can find satisfaction and develop to quite high levels. You're looking at individual hotel level, you're looking at chain level, corporate office, and there's so many opportunities there. So if you have the passion and the drive, then you're kind of halfway there already. But always remember to be curious, always try to learn more and work towards that development. Because if you don't make that first step, then it usually doesn't come like that easily. So thank you for your time. And thank you, Jason. Have a great day.
It's been a pleasure. And that's all we've got time for this week. Join us next week for more fun and games. Like and share the video because it helps us attract cool guests like Jeremie. See you next week.
Here we go!